Now we're starting to expand into the entertainment industry, which I know many of you are excited about. And so for us, that's mostly unscripted as well. That'll be documentary series and full-length features. But now I really need writers in that space because we have a much longer total running time, or maybe we have a series where we need to have the story in one episode and we need to have an arc across the entire program. So writers will now start to become more of our world beyond a copywriter or beyond a producer who's like a story producer who's actually thinking about the story but not writing the words. So that's going to be very fun. Of course, we have voiceover in most of our content and we're writing that too. So that's what's happened at Stepped. I encourage you guys to check it all out. I think our creative team does a really beautiful job of always thinking about the look and the aesthetic. And keeping that in mind and kind of trying to up-level that from just, any documentary you might see in the world. And that's all super, super planned. So, and want to have a through line. So like if you're checking out the Nike work, you'll see like it has a look and a feel, even though we have 6 different athletes, it's always going to have something that kind of goes together. And sometimes we have different directors and sometimes we have different cinematographers, and maybe they need to align with the aesthetic as well. Or maybe not, maybe we want the directors to have kind of their own take. And so that each one is sort of a standalone piece. So that's really fun. That's a little bit about what I'm doing today. I started in, as I mentioned, on the opening and closing ceremonies, and then just stayed in the live TV business. I did concerts, award shows, travel docs with music all over the world. Really enjoyed that. That was definitely like the live satellite truck situation, bigger crews, lots of cameramen, lots of cable, it was lots of talent, like high level talent, celebrities, like the whole thing. It was very fun. I worked for a long time with Kenny Ortega, who directed the High School Musicals, big Disney guy. We did some television shows together. We were invited to help open the grand opening of the Bellagio Hotel in Las Vegas because he was all about movement and music and, big spectacles. So we were down there working with Steve Wynn to do that. And then while we were there, we also helped choreograph the fountains that you see out front. They were going up and down, and Kenny wanted to see them move, and he wanted to see them like a Broadway show. Like, can the water be like a Broadway show? So that was wild and cool. And then I went on with Tall Pony Productions, production company, small production company in the live TV space. Really, that's where I learned to truly produce all the nuts and bolts, whether it was being in the edit or budgeting, and also business affairs, and like lots of little tools that have served me well, even though not exciting. If you were to get those opportunities in your freelance or full-time world, will be good, just like a good tool to have in your toolkit. After Tall Pony, we did a lot of, that's where we did the live TV concerts, award shows and such. And then went on with Red Bull Media House, was it HBO in comedy? And we did a lot of digital work as well as specials and festivals. I was probably 30 at that time. And that was when I had the chance to really manage 30 people and like actually hire people that I believed in. So that was a nice moment in time. And then went on to Red Bull Media House, joined that team when there were 6 of us. As you guys know, 1,000 pieces of content a day all over the world now. But at that time, it was just a couple of guys on surfboards, and now quite a bit of storytelling there. So it's been a lot of fun. I think the great part of the freelancing world is that you learn so much and meet so many people. And I think, I always say if somebody's graduating right away and you just I'm like, just get any job. To me, it's just get any job. If you're an assistant or doing anything, get any job, do that. One road is you can do that for like a year, and then you've proven like, yeah, I did it for a year. I did my part. I'm reliable. Hopefully this person's going to give me a great referral. And that's that. At one point after Tall Pony, I decided I was going to go freelance. And I did that very purposefully because I wanted to learn from a lot of people how I thought, I really want to be an executive producer like my boss, because I started as assistant, but then I got all these chances to produce and kind of grew out of that role. But I figured if I ever want to be this executive producer, maybe I should just spend a year or two hopping around these other companies and see how they do it. They might do it differently than Tony. And that was true. And I, one, met a lot more people more quickly because you're only working for 2 weeks, 6 weeks, a couple of months. And two, they did have different systems. They did have different, templates. They did have different ways of going about things. And generally just being in the trenches with all those people at 10 o'clock at night, you become friends with them, you trust them, and then they're going to help you get work. You're going to help them get work. You're going to see them 10 years later. It's wild how the industry kind of just brings you back to people that you worked with even for a day, like even just a PA on set for a day. So I just encourage you, if you're thinking about the freelance world, get that call sheet or, network over lunch and get everybody's contact information. I typically don't grab people's information that I just don't like, that's okay. But I really try to grab as much information from the people I really do like, so that when it's time to call them, we were friends, or like we hit it off, or we had the same sensibilities. So that can really help you later. And then, of course, you have the stress of like, how am I going to pay my bills, and how's that going to all work? And while I've done both, right? I've done like the full-time job, and I've done the freelance thing, and I've run my own businesses as well. So all of it has been great. And the full-time job is very reliable, and your bills are getting paid. And I guess some ways that's why I say maybe right out of school, the first job for 1 year could be good, because you could hopefully like identify someone that you would really want to learn from, like the future you, right? Like, oh, could I work for the president of ABC? Because even though I'm 22, I aspire to be the president of ABC. Or Nicholas, for you, it's like, I want to own my own production company someday where I'm a director and DP, but I also have a lot of other producers and people working for me. Or maybe you want to just be an individual DP. Could you like be an assistant to a DP now, or like a part-time, like a first AC or second AC or something? And then just try to absorb that as much as you can for that first year. Because not only are you proving that you're a reliable, lovely person, but it takes the stress off of like paying your rent and like figuring out how to be away from campus. And, maybe you're in a new place where your like best friends aren't there. And like, you have to struggle with like, I don't know, like in LA, like no one knew you, no one cared. All these people went to USC and UCLA. They were like, you are way too smiley, Georgia girl. Like, we have no interest in being friends with you. And then about a year later, it was all cool and it was fine. But I was very glad. And I look back on that thinking, I was really pleased that I was working with Kenny, and, he provided me with some stability and some support, and I didn't have to worry about my paycheck every hot second. Then when it was time for the freelance, I'll just say that I developed some tools, which, being able to run your own personal budget, personal finance is really important. I would just save every single receipt that you ever use. I still do it now. Post-it note, 25 cents in the meter. I'm not kidding. I'm so frugal that way. I guess it's maybe the producer in me. But when it comes to tax time, everything you ever spent when you're freelance, most of it's going to be a write-off. Meal receipts, that you met somebody, or maybe sometimes just grab all those meal receipts. And every time you ever eat out at a restaurant, you can't do groceries, you can't do your rent, but even still, if you are freelance, part of your rent, it can be deductible on your tax time too. Like a portion of that is your desk, a portion of that is your costume storage, a portion of that is, your printer, your paper, your software, your the books that you bought to research your idea. Like all of that is business, because you're constantly, if you went to lunch with a friend and you're like, oh, they're not even like entertainment people, but while we were there, we were talking about their grandmother and their story, and like something about that hit me, and I wrote it down in a journal. Well, guess what? Then now lunch now became like a business thing. So save every receipt. Everything you do, if you're freelance, is all a business expense. If I go to the museum, something I saw there, it had baby powder in the photograph. Well, now I'm thinking about that. What could we do with baby powder and cars? like here at Step, like we could do something like really cool and exciting and we could light it and all this stuff. Well, museum admission, business expense. So for real, when you're freelance, save all those receipts, please just get in the habit right now. And you can just put them in an envelope, you know, and then at the end of the year, when you go to file your taxes yourself, or maybe you can find, you know, work with a CPA at first when you're growing, they'll help you. They probably will save you money just helping you figure that how to navigate those things. In terms of finding your next job, we talked about networking, you know, and I think when I was younger, I developed a spreadsheet, you know, it was just like a Google sheet. And I had all my you can do that. I think you can export, right, from like your Google contacts or something, right? You just export it right into a sheet. And one thing you want to do is have a nice cadence of how often you connect with people, because you don't want to keep hitting Laura Cushing up every week. Hey, I'm still looking for a job. It's like, yeah, I love you, but hit me up like 4 times a year, or hit me up when you have something really amazing to share with me or tell me or show me. You know, oh my God, you're going to be so psyched. I got a writer's assistant job on this show, you know, or my novel that I wrote was picked up, or I did this, I was on a short film and this was my set. Like, show me something real that you did. And also tell me what you're, you know, and I'm available and looking for this next. So you kind of use that spreadsheet and you just kind of go through it, right? You're like, in the morning when I'm fresh and I had my coffee, I'm going to send out 10 or 20 emails, go through the 10 or 20 on the Google sheet, check them off the day that I did it. It was June 25th. Great. Done. Go to lunch with somebody if you can, or a coffee, invite somebody. Believe me, people who are 40 and up who can actually help you have time for a coffee. They're busy, but they also can't wait to help you. Most people, especially in the UGA network as well. So you do your spreadsheet in the morning, you do your coffee in the midday, or maybe it's a friend, maybe it's the PA from the shoot 2 weeks ago, or maybe it's somebody you just graduated, maybe it's somebody in this call. Like, oh my God, I didn't cross paths with you at campus, but I'd love to get to know you a little bit more. Let's grab a coffee. And if they're boring and you don't like them, you don't have to stay. Coffee done, I'm out. You know, it's no commitment. You did it for 20 minutes, I gotta go. And then in the afternoon, you're writing, or whatever your schedule is, right? You can switch all this up, but like, you're writing, or you're gonna go shoot something, or you're gonna, you know, go to the museum and look for inspiration, or you're gonna go on a hike and ideate. You know, do not sit in your place all day stressing out about your job. You gotta see people, you gotta work on your craft, and, you know, like hit people up, do a little business development for yourself, and that's your day. And I feel like that keeps some good mental health going. And so with that spreadsheet, you're saying, hey, by the way, I just was on set with the cast of Hacks, and I was a PA in the talent department. It was wild, but now I'm looking for my next PA job or whatever it is. And they said, that's so great. You should come by for a coffee, or maybe nothing. Maybe they were like, ghost you, nothing, but whatever. You did your 20. Somebody's going to reply. Somebody's going to remember. And of course, social media too, same thing, right? I just finished this, check out, I'm available. Also, I have a producer that works for me over the years. I love it. Every so often I get an email. Hi, amazing colleagues. She does like a blast. I've done this, whatever. She does one big swoop, which is fine too. So then another trick that I had for mental health was I would also look at like my calendar, right? And I would like, because you don't want to run out of money. It's so stressful. And so you circle on your calendar, like, this is the day to panic, It's like, all right, I run out of money in 6 weeks. I run out of money in 8 weeks, and try to always have like a little bucket of money that kind of gets you through that time period. And you might have a part-time job, like you might be, a waiter, or you might work in a Target or whatever. If you can, try to get the part-time job. Like, I think Sid, maybe you said that you're doing some content for a payroll company. Like, that's great. Like, if you can do that a couple of days a week or something, or if they're flexible with your schedule so you can zip out and do some other thing, that's great. So you got like your little base money. Then you were like filming for someone, you were getting paid for a couple of days, but now you got like 6 weeks to the next one, you think. just literally physically circle your calendar or put a post-it note. Like I called it panic day. Like this is panic day. That's the day when I know rent's not going to come. And then I had to spend a lot of time like with outreach, calling people, emailing, you know, and it worked out pretty well. Like I never really was out of work, you know, just because I knew that I kind of underlying kind of had to kind of make that happen. I kind of had my little side hustle gig, and you know the job kind of came up, and the spreadsheet also helped me from kind of hitting the same people all the time. So you would cycle through those 20 and then they would go all the way to the bottom of 200 or 500 or whatever your network is right now. You know, it's like now I got 10 more, and then you just never quite hit you know, it's okay cadence of how often you're checking in with people. In terms of preparing your materials and sharing them with folks, I would say, you know, it's nice if you can get a bit of a cabinet, you know, like your advisors, the people that you can show your script to, the people you know read it on the weekend. It's very possibly your peer group at first, but there might be a mentor or someone who is in your craft that's willing to look over your stuff long term. Like they're going to be a long-term advisor to you. Because you know, my husband's also in visual effects. We have a visual effects business. We have films we're writing. We have content we're creating still today, still waiting for those scripts to be bought, sold, created, stories out there in the world. And it's a lot of fun. And I read a ton of scripts, right? But there are a couple, not very many, but some that I'm like, this is just bad. Like I spent 2.5 hours reading this, or 2 hours, and I wanted to write notes and I wanted to give feedback, but like, this is bad. And I'm working 60 hours a week. I have 2 daughters. I have a husband. I have a home, all kinds of stuff that come with that. And you gave me something to read that's bad. Like, I never want to read a script from you again. So if you're going to go beyond your cabinet, like your cabinet could read your bad stuff, your writers group or your, you know, cinematographer friends, like, you know, I'm going to send you this rough cut. Like, fine, great. I'm going to send you a draft of my DP reel. Check it out. Great, fine. Do that with your inner group. But when it comes time to really show someone that can hire you or help you, really only show them your best work. And if that's for you, you know, Josie, like maybe it's like a mood board or something, like if you're, you know, designing something, or if it's a motion graphics or whatever on your site, like only put your best stuff on. I work with directors here and I'm like, I want you to have, so in the commercial space, it's like, let's say I'm working with Varsity, our comedy directors, you know, of course they do comedy. So I'm like, get 3 really great comedy spots. It doesn't matter if they're spec. It doesn't matter if anyone paid you to do it. That actually does not matter to a soul. What they care about is it really good? Would it really be on TV? Can I tell the difference that this never was launched in the digital space? If any of those questions are, yeah, it's not legit. I can tell it's a spec. You know, it's not funny. It looks bad. The quality is poor. That's a no, you know? So make sure that one spot is really, really good. You know, they had 1 spot, but it was super good, super funny. And I said, okay, now we're going to get you 2 more commercials. Hopefully you'll get them paid, you know, hopefully I can work you into something where it's like a low budget digital thing, but like it'll be another spot for you. Then they did another spec. Now we have 3. They only needed 3 comedy spots to be competitive in the space. That's it, just 3 in like the legit ad agency world. Then I said, okay, long-term, we want to have 3 comedy, we want to have 3 kids and family, and we want to have 3 like toys, so that when toys are really hot or animation is really hot, you can be those guys. Or when maybe we can get you in the comedy world, we'll get you in comedy. So again, same rule, just get 3 of each little pillar. Now you got like a great diverse portfolio where you're not just known for one thing. Of course, there are people who are known for one thing, and they just work on that their whole life. You know, they're just trying to make it so perfect. And that's okay, you know, but you got to really like be like super excellent at that. I'm someone who's been more of a generalist, right? So it's like, well, I did sports and I did comedy and I did music, and I love, you know, these communities, hero stories. You know, I'll do anything. I think it's all fascinating, but like and it helps me. You know, I'm like, oh, I did this one thing that one time. It's so weird. They're like, Laura, you did that? And I'm like, I don't know. It just seemed fun. I just did it. You know, why not? I learned something. It's not my whole career. It's just like, so yeah, I did it like an animated kids thing. I don't know why. I just did it. So you kind of can think about it like that. If you want to be a specialist and like excellent in your very much your special space, then you got to like really buckle down and make it super good. And if you want to try it out and play it in different spaces, that's okay too. I feel like I'm talking a lot. You guys give me a thumbs up if this is good so far. Okay. All right. Nice. Okay. Okay. So, one other thing I was going to say is, you know, sometimes folks are like, I'm not going to take that job, or I'm not going to do that thing because it's not exactly what I want to do. And I would just say, again, like maybe you would learn something for it. So like I worked at a small boutique agency. They represented hair, makeup, and wardrobe stylists in the print industry. I don't know. I was the account receivable assistant. So I had a binder and I would go through hundreds of sheets and call these people and say, by the way, because there had been some accounting mishap, by the way, you owe this agency $1,000, $10,000. I'm not sure if you're aware. I'm going to scan, you know, I'm going to scan this information over to you, and I'm going to call you tomorrow. I was like the muscle, like I was coming for people's money. It was crazy. But I learned about how an agency works. I never worked at William Morris Endeavor. I never worked at CAA. A lot of my friends did that mailroom thing, and they've learned a lot and you know, networked a lot. But I saw the operation. I saw and heard the agents on the phone. I heard them negotiating deals. I heard them talking to their artists. You know, these people could potentially represent you as a writer someday because they're agents. They possibly know other type of agents, or they're DP agents or production designer agents, or maybe they're gonna, you know. So I was observing, what do agents do? How do they sound like? What conversations do they have? How do they negotiate? How do they dress? What do they do on the weekend? I mean, I don't know. So I saw the whole thing from a small agency perspective. And then, you know, on the finance side, I learned like, oh, just by looking at these papers, that's how much that person gets paid. This is how much a client will pay for that. You know, this is why it's so important not to lose money and to track down money, because this business clearly did a terrible job of that 5 years ago. And now they have to pay me to go find like $500,000 worth of missing money. You know, it was wild. But then flash forward like 10 years later, you know, I'm in a position where I have to talk to people in business affairs, and I have to talk to people in legal, and I have to talk to people in finance. And I suddenly understand why it's so important to wrap a good budget, to have receipts for things, to have records, to have contracts, to look over these things in detail and not just say, oh, I'm creative and I don't know that stuff. Like, just take a minute to learn it as best you can. Don't be freaked out about it, but like, get some kind of savvy, because as a freelance person, you basically are running your own business. You are your own brand. You are your own bookkeeper. You are your own assistant. You know, if, you know, just, you got to get prepared for that. And things that you have to buy, purchase, rent, of course, those are agreements. You know, you want to read that stuff. Like, when does this due? What happens if I break it? Do I need insurance? All really important things to learn and get kind of savvy on, and you know, kind of keep reinvesting in yourself and reinvesting in your business as much as you can. Record all your mileage as you drive around, all that stuff. I feel like there was one other thing I was going to say on the freelance world, just to say, you know, I know people who just couldn't do freelance. They just couldn't do it. They tried, it was too stressful, it didn't work. It's okay. But I know lots of people who love freelance, and they love being very independent, and they love having their own schedule. And I think that's also really great and really fun. And then you can also, grow and become a business of 2 or 3 or 10 or 20, that's all totally possible. I think I've talked enough. Should we do some Q&A? You guys want to do some questions and answers maybe? Okay. All right, Derek, I see. What do you have a question by any chance?
Yes. So I was wondering, you mentioned film festival circuit. I guess it's not as related to like freelancing, but would you tell me a little bit about the strategy involved with that?
Yeah, so I have a woman who works with us. Her name is India. She really manages that process for us. But you, of course, submit your film. You have to pay. A lot of times it's hefty, like it's really hard to submit to many of the best film festivals because they're kind of expensive. But basically, you put in your application. It's an online thing. You put in your application. I think there's even like a common. It's like the common app when you apply for college. Like it's a common application across the festivals, and then you kind of upload your film, and then they get back to you and they say, okay, yeah, you're in, and hopefully your film is good, and then you can get like certain awards, obviously, like best picture, best directing, best cinematography, best breakout. There are all these niche awards too. Some film festivals are kind of like a marketing tool, like they might be a lot less expensive to apply to, but you might win an award. Or if you could get like a Vimeo staff pick, like those are super valuable. And then that's something you can put on your site, and that's something you can promote. Like you got to do a lot of PR. You're your own business again, right? So it's like, oh, here's my laurel from the film. And then of course you want to go, and while you're there, you want to meet some people and set up some meetings before, not just go to the screening. Hopefully if it's Sundance or something, you're there for 4 days. Everybody is like booked. Like if you're coming from Los Angeles, everybody goes to Sundance. It's like breakfast, coffee, lunch, cocktail, screening, after screening cocktail. You're there for 4 days. So like try to meet people. Everybody's already there. Make it easy on yourself. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, yeah. And I guess so with each film festival that you submit to, what is your primary goal going into and coming out of it?
Well, we would love to get an award or to get acknowledgement, even silver, bronze, whatever. Jury selection would be so wonderful, but you're not going to get selected if your stuff is bad. So that's where you talk to your cabinet, your first cabinet, the people who love you no matter what. Sometimes it's your parents, your besties, or your like college friends. And then you go to your mentor and you're like, is this like, give me feedback on this. Is this going to be good enough to get an award? And they should tell you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else?
I have another
Go
question.
ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. So you also mentioned that you've started and then run your own businesses. I assume like beyond like the freelancing. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yep. So when I was at Red Bull, we were growing, as I mentioned, and it became clear that I could produce some 1-hour television shows for them. So I formulated a production company. Again, really wanted to run my own business and be an executive producer based on my other experience of knowing what that looked like. And I just, by formulating the company, was able to provide the producing effort behind all these 1-hour shows. So, made them primarily commissioned by Red Bull, but then they were sold on to NBC, CBS, Outside TV, of course, Red Bull TV eventually when it was launched. So, just allowed me basically to take a fee. They said, okay, we're going to commission this. Sometimes you have a piece that you want to put your own money into, and you're going to, like, maybe you have a feature and you want to go into the film festival world, and you're like, okay, I got to fund this somehow. So you see filmmakers out there right now, right? Your Kickstarters, and like, you got to like, okay, I need 40,000 for this, or I need 7,000, it's like bigger network, the more likely everybody's going to give you $30. So everybody gave me $30. I got 2,500. I can shoot a sizzle. I'll grab Nicholas. I'll grab Josie. Candace. We're gonna go write, shoot, and direct this thing. I get an editor somehow, but they got to get paid. So I know I need to pay my editor. You take your $2,500. And then hopefully somehow you beg, borrow, and steal to make this film, or maybe you wrote it and you want to, get someone to make it, so that you can prove that you write an amazing script. It's not just, or like an example of the script, like a little 2-minute piece to go with the script and shop it. And then eventually, if it is really good, let's say you are an award winner at the film festival, then the goal would be for a studio or a buyer, distributor to acquire it from you, which would be very financially wonderful. Most of them don't get acquired, but if they did acquire it, that would be great. And then you can call your entertainment attorney, which you don't have. And so you call Laura Cushing and you say, hey, who's your entertainment attorney? And I tell you who, and now you have an attorney. And they work out that sale for you. Alternatively, maybe you have the chance to like, oh, someone who knows someone who knows someone, and they agreed to let you pitch to, I don't know, Marvel. I don't know who you guys want to pitch to. Marvel, Hulu, Apple, wherever you think it's going to go. Like somehow you beg, borrow, we're stealing. You're working for an agent. They said they'll help you. You're the assistant, but they said they'd kind of help you. Okay, fine. We got a script over here that you got to pitch. And if they buy it from you, then they give you money outright. So in my case, I always was given money outright. So they would say, okay, what's the budget for this story? And I would tell them this is the budget. And they say, okay, yeah, we can do that. We'll buy that from you. And they paid me, I'm just going to throw out random numbers, but let's say they paid me $500,000 for a 90-minute feature. Okay, I manage that money. Whatever money I don't spend, I get to keep. And reinvest in so if I'm wildly fiscally irresponsible, I don't save as much money for my company. But of course, I also want my content to look amazing. And I want the people I'm working with to be really good at their craft. So I'm going to pay you well. I'm going to invest in the piece because the next one, I want the next job to come from it. And then I want to keep some profit. But then Red Bull would go on and sell it to someone else like CBS or NBC. And then they would sell it for $800,000 or $900,000, let's say. And so now they paid me $500, they made $400, everybody's happy. And there are a bunch of you can have like a co-production, like, okay, try to get somebody's attention, like Step Studios. They kind of like your idea, you're an up and comer, we'll kind of walk you through this whole process. You're gonna get like 30% of the fee and Step's gonna get like 70 because you're like nobody, but it's a really good idea. So you deserve 30, and the next one you're gonna be like, well, I already did that one and I got my award, but I'm not gonna do that again. I get 50 and you get 50. So your leverage increases over time.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, any questions?
Yeah, I have a question. Just because freelancing is you're kind of being your own boss, like you were talking about, do you have tips for like the nitty-gritty actual like keeping yourself accountable and also maybe more specifically about the writing process?
Yeah, I would just say that, I'm a big fan of gratitude, like generally, it's hard when you're freelance because a lot of times you're just working by yourself, right? And you're like, oh, it gets lonely, it gets kind of like, I don't know if I'm doing anything here. But just waking up every day with that sense of gratitude, like I'm so thankful that I can write. I'm so thankful that I have this special talent. I'm so thankful that I can work with other people who have their special talents. And then, you have to find some kind of tricks or tools. And like, I know a friend who's a writer, and she told me the other day, I said, oh, how is your writer group? And she's like, oh, I said, what's it like? Do people talk about their stories and do they kind of pitch your stories? She's like, sometimes, but she's like, also like, sometimes we just log in literally on Zoom for like an hour and a half and write. Like right now, I said, so wait, everyone logs in and turns their camera off? She's like, yeah. Like we talk for like 5 minutes and then we all turn our cameras off and we all write. So I thought that was so cool, like me, I'm just like, oh my God, that's the coolest thing and weird, but okay, cool. Other people have, right, like workshop in-person type writers, like there are 6 of us in the group, we're gonna pass the script, we're gonna come back together in 2 weeks, I'm gonna give you feedback, like maybe in a group setting of freelance, you keep each other accountable that way so you can stay on target. My husband writes, I mentioned that too. And like, he is very disciplined. I'm not that way. I'm kind of like, I'll go on a binge. I'll be like, I'm going to write for a weekend, like, just like, don't talk to me. I'm going to write for 3 days straight. For him, he's like every day, 7 to 8 a.m. I don't know if this is not probably for you guys, but like, I was so impressed with the writer and director of Frozen 2, and at that documentary that they did on Disney for behind the scenes. She writes every day from 5 a.m. to 7 a.m. every single day. And then she gets her daughter to school, and then she comes back and runs the directing of the film, like for years, every day. So, you'll find a way to kind of keep yourself accountable. I think that if you find you can't really quite like write, or can't quite like get your shoot off the ground, or, I don't know, you might need to go get a full-time job. And shockingly, sometimes too, like, my husband and I knew lots of people who were, writing at home or doing stuff at home. And really, when it came down to it, they wrote for like a couple hours a day, but then that did nothing else. And so it was like, maybe you should have gotten that assistant job where you had a paycheck, where you met people, but then and also like, because you have a motivation, because you like got dressed and you went to your job, like when you came home at night, you wrote, or you did it before you went to work, or you did it on your lunch break, So sometimes that can be a thing you learned. Like, I'm supposed to be freelance writing every day, but I actually don't. So maybe it's better if I do get like a job that keeps me busy and motivated and inspired, and just make that commitment that I'm going to write. And, it might be that you get invited to stuff and you're like, I can't, like, that's my writing night. Thursday's my writing night, or Saturday is my writing day. I love you guys. I'll see you later. Hope that helps. What was the second question? Accountability was one.
Oh yeah, well, you basically answered it. Like, thank you so much.
Okay.
I just want to know more about the writing process too, but that was so helpful. Thank you so much.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. You find inspiration anywhere in the world, right? And kind of what you like to write and what comes naturally. And I think you kind of keep working on it and make it better. Some people have one idea, one script. It's kind of nice. If you were to get any success, it would be kind of nice to have more than one, because I've seen that happen too, where like directors get an idea going and they shoot it and they execute it and they get some love in the festival, and then they're on their way, and then everybody's like, what else you got? And I'm like, I got nothing. I have no next project teed up. I have no passion project. I have no team, no concept. So I would say for writing too, like, have your main script maybe, or your main series, but like, have a couple of others. Of course, you have to have a spec script if you're thinking about getting to series, but like, a lot of non-TV writers are really being welcomed into the TV space now, because they come at it from a journalistic perspective, or they have like a really niche understanding of a subculture. So I don't know, it's a lot more open than it was. Like, it used to be that you had to be like the PA and in the writer room and then like slog it out for decades. You don't, but you probably could pair up with somebody who kind of knows what they're doing and kind of like grab that mentor, What else?
I have a question.
Yes.
So I feel like I'm really good at like connecting with people and like having meaningful conversations and like making friends. But then when it comes around to like asking like, hey, do you have an opportunity for me? I feel like it gets awkward because I don't want people to think that I'm just like using them for an opportunity. What advice would you give for like that aspect of networking?
Yeah, I've definitely had that experience too, where it's like, oh, like Lord kind of keeps hitting me up for this, but I feel like it's like, like if you ask once and they kind of give you the stink eye, you're like, guess not, or you ask 2 or 3 times and there's no response, you're like, maybe they're going to always be at the bottom of the 200 list. Like if I ever get really desperate and I got to go down to number 199, I'll call them again. But hopefully you start to find people who are like, yeah, like, And also they have to, it gets easier when someone's actually worked with you. Like you actually were on set together, or you actually co-wrote something, or, you know, the producer read your script and they actually like it and they actually like you. Then it's like, they're gonna help because they, you know, either you're reciprocating or they genuinely believe in your talent, and if they're smart, they're going places too. I mean, you know, maybe there's some producers that you're graduating with that would be interested in kind of helping you navigate. Like they don't know what they're doing either. They got to meet people too. They got to be like, I really believe in the script, you know? Yeah, I would just use your spidey sense. If you feel like they're not really responding, then you can kind of let it go.
Yeah. Awesome.
And then just put them on your newsletter, you know, or whatever. Like, then they get the update. You didn't ask them for anything. You just told them, I'm continuing to grow my craft and wanted you to know.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Nicholas, what are you going to do? You going to get a good reel together?
Yeah, I have a little bit of a reel, but it's kind of sporadic. Like I said, it's sports, music videos. I shot a short film, but I guess I actually do have a question. Like, as a freelance videographer, I guess it's really, I struggle with finding more like bigger production projects, whereas like all my projects are just like someone that's not in the industry wants something filmed. Kind of like a Fiverr project. Like I've gotten a short film on Fiverr, but it was like really unprofessional, and he didn't really know what he was doing, stuff like that. So how do you kind of, as a freelancer, work your way towards bigger production stuff? Like, do you start just being a PA and then seeing people on set, hopefully they come to you as?
Yeah, I would try to start to work part-time for a camera house or camera rental house, something like that. You know, really meet people fast. They're coming to rent a camera every single day. And then you're like, you know, whatever, you're scanning their receipt and scanning their camera, and you're like, oh, you input it and you're like, oh, it's Derek Walker. Okay, I'm gonna look that guy up. I liked him, you know? And then maybe you're like, hey, if you ever need help on a Saturday or Sunday or whatever your days are off, like maybe you're only at camera house 3 days a week or something, you'd be like, I would love to, you know, camera PA for you. Start lugging the batteries, you know, try to get in there are so many people that need help right out of college, you know, just in the camera department and team, and helping them out would be so important. Of course, we hire a ton of like what, you know, I'll call like a ninja. Like I just need a ninja, somebody who can like shoot, direct, edit, get it done. You know, I can send them out there with a shot list. I can send them out there with some releases, and they can handle all that. And if you can get in touch with some, you know, Atlanta brands or Atlanta production companies and kind of pitch yourself like that, they will really appreciate that. If you can actually, if you're capable, you know, if you're really capable and your stuff's going to come back looking good, usable audio, you're going to be able to run audio and it's going to sound good, you know, like you're going to look at the backdrop, make sure it's like cleaned up, you know, like those are all like the little details of when I send you out alone. I hope that you're going to be able to get it done like pretty well. And then you got a few of those on your reel. Like I work with all these guys at Under Armour, and they're all like just one-man bands. Like they shoot photo too. And it's like, great. Like, here's your money for the day. Go do this for 10 hours, bring it back to me. And now how many of those do you need to do? 3. Then you don't, you know, then try not to do more Under Armour. Then you try to do some, you know, Orange Theory Fitness or something else to like kind of develop a real heel. I mean, you can keep working for Under Armour because of course they're going to pay your rent. Yeah. But maybe like music too. Like, okay, fine, I'm going to do a couple of music videos. Like, cool. Like that's not going to make a ton of money in a music video, but like, that's where I want to try out this new camera. That's where I want to try out that new lens. That's where I want to try out these new camera moves. That's where I'm going to understand like tempo when it comes to camera movement, and you know.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah. I would try to get some part-time work wherever you can, but in your space.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm so glad and thankful that we've been able to meet you guys. I just encourage, we can connect on LinkedIn. That's sort of my like industry Rolodex. And, you know, if I can be a resource to you over the course of this year or long term, I'm so happy to do that.